Welcome back to another video. We're going to be diving into, do you actually have a valuable tree? And more specifically, what trees are valuable? And I see so many people not understand how the value of trees works or have misconceptions about the value of timber. So let's dive into all of this. It's an interesting topic, and hopefully I can answer a lot of your guys' questions. So the most common question or inquiry I get on my website is, hey, I've got a few trees I'm wanting to sell and get rid of. You know, are they worth anything? Who should I contact? How does this work? And for the vast majority of these people, to be honest, their trees aren't worth anything. The timber value comes in volume. It's very, very unusual or rare that you have an individual tree be worth a lot of money. And then on top of that, it's worth a lot of money standing and not already harvested. So let's run through some scenarios. Oftentimes I will have, I had somebody reach out to me the other day, hey, I got 20 to 30 walnut trees. And okay, well, that sounds good. You may have some value there, and I went out and I decided to check it out. Turns out they had 3 or 4 trees that were mature enough that you could have harvested. And people think walnut, must be worth a lot of money. You see people commenting, whatever. It's just, they have these ideas that a little walnut log is worth a lot of money simply because it's walnut. And everybody's heard of the story of, somebody sold a walnut tree for 10,000 or 20,000 or 30,000, whatever it is. And in reality, this client only had, like I said, a few trees that were mature. So there may have been a company that would have bought the other trees, the other, 15 of them. The problem was when they are that small, if you harvest them at that point, they are worth less because the diameter is smaller and there is less bored feet in that tree because, again, the diameter is smaller. And that's why it's so advantageous to wait until a tree is actually mature to harvest it, because you have a compounding effect. Not only is it growing to be bigger to where there's more bored feet in that tree, it's also worth more per bored foot at that point. Going back to, she did have 4 that would have been mature enough to harvest. The problem is they were standing trees, and again, people have the idea that, well, it's a walnut tree, it must be worth a lot of money. And it's really not. When you break it down, she may have had $1,000 or $2,000 there because, the crew has to come in and actually harvest that tree. And there's not like it's cheaper to move in for 1 tree or 2 trees than it is more. You have the same cost for that crew to come in and actually do the work. And so to be honest, they would have had a difficult time even finding somebody interested in purchasing those couple trees. Now, another example I think that a lot of people have in their head is when they hear these numbers about the value of trees, most often it's either the lumber value or when the tree is already harvested, so on the secondhand market. So an example, there was a guy that reached out to me. He had, 1 walnut tree that he cut down. Sounded like it was pretty significant, but it was already harvested, and he was able to, send it directly to the mill, and he wanted my opinion of the value of that tree. So I came and, looked at it, and I estimated that tree to be worth about $4,000 delivered to its destination. And that's a lot of money for 1 tree. That being said, though, it was a significantly large tree. It had very few defects. It was nearly perfect. That's the other thing I see. People think it must be a veneer tree, and, there's not that many veneer trees. That's a pretty special tree to actually be a veneer tree. So don't just assume that yours is automatically veneer. But in this case, it was a veneer tree. He had already bought that tree. He paid for it and cut that tree down. So it's already harvested. You're able to see on both ends what that tree looks like and actually give it an accurate value, versus if you're looking to sell your standing timber, it's going to be a different picture. But now, that being said, that shouldn't dishearten you. There is again, a lot of money then when you start putting timber in bulk. So I just did a timber sale recently that was, 130-acre property. I think there was 75 acres of timber on that property. And, it had a lot of big mature timber on it, and that brought a significant pile of money to the owner. And, there again, we're looking at harvesting 300,000 board feet of timber on that property. And, you're looking at huge amounts of volume, and that's where you're going to get your, higher end buyers to come in. They're much more interested in buying that versus, your 5 acres with 15 trees on it. So kind of keep that in mind. That's a huge aspect is your volume. Now that's not to say that you can't have timber value on small acreage. There's always the exception, but it's pretty rare. I think a good kind of way to think about it is until you have 40, 50 plus trees, it's not going to be worth that much money. People think these trees are worth thousands of dollars a piece, and 90% of the time they're not. An example is, white oak. A good, true white oak at volume, at scale, is bringing $1 a foot. So you might have a 500 board foot tree, which is a pretty good sized tree. That's $500 for that tree. It's not 2,000, and it can be more if it happens to be a veneer tree. But just setting your expectations of what timber is actually worth goes a long ways, and understanding again comes back to volume is the number one thing. I hope this helped you guys, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. And leave a comment, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.